Looks may not be everything, but when it comes to cars, it certainly helps. The rather dull mid-size family sedan class has had some bright spots, one of them being the Kia Optima. Sadly, the Optima has been discontinued, but the good news, it's been replaced by this, the all-new 2021 Kia K5. When the 2021 Kia K5 goes on sale this summer, it'll be offered in 5 trim levels.
We expect prices to remain about the same as the Optima, so expect to pay about 25 grand to start, but from there it doesn't climb that much. The EX trim, which is the more luxurious version, starts under $28,000. Meanwhile, the higher performing GT is only just over $30,000. That's a huge bargain.
The big departure for Kia is actually at the very top of the range with the K5 GT, which represents a performance-oriented variant. What we have here is the very well-appointed EX trim and the sporty-looking GT line. Powering both of these is a 1.6-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine that puts out 180 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque. That's about average for the class, comparable to other top-ranked sedans like the Honda Accord, Mazda 6, as well as the related Hyundai Sonata. An 8-speed automatic transmission is the only choice, and it sends power to the front wheels. For the first time, all-wheel drive will be available, but it's only going to be offered with the LXS and the GT line trim. That'll make it competitive against the few other all-wheel drive choices that include the Toyota Camry, Nissan Altima, and Dodge Charger. Estimates put fuel economy right at 31 miles per gallon for most of the lineup. The base model, which is slightly lighter, achieves 32 miles per gallon. Those are pretty much right in line with other sedans like the Accord and Camry. As I said at the top, the Kia Optima set itself apart from the dull sedans in the class with style, and the K5 continues that tradition with even more aggression. Up front, I really like the grille. It's incorporating the double tab Kia motif really well in the grille as well as at the top of the windscreen. And the shape of it, well, it's kind of dished out, concave, almost like a Maserati Gran Turismo. It also has this cool Z-shaped lightning bolt accent light and what appears to be functioning scoops right down below. Now down the side, there's not a whole lot to talk about surface-wise, but there is one detail that kind of bugs me. It's this chrome strip that starts here, travels all the way back around the glass and up the other side. It seems just a little out of place for an otherwise tidy design. And if it were mine, I'd probably do some kind of darker vinyl wrap for that. Down here though, we have what appears to be just an aesthetic little cutout vent and some LED taillights. Overall though, it's the silhouette that sets the K5 apart from the rest. And in a lot of ways, it reminds me of a Kia Stinger, at least a baby Kia Stinger, and that's a good thing. By now, it should be pretty obvious I like the way the K5 looks. Of course, looks aren't everything, so let's go for a drive. For the drive, I am hopping into the GT line instead of the EX, primarily because it's blue and it shows up a lot better on camera. Mechanically, they're the same, so these drive impressions apply to both. This is a standard automatic transmission, not a dual clutch, and definitely not a continuously variable transmission, the CVT. Those tend to have some rather pregnant pauses before you start getting some power. This is a lot more responsive, and because of that, it probably feels a little quicker than it is. At our test track, it went from 0 to 60 in 8 seconds, which isn't exactly setting the world on fire, but it is pretty average for a base engine in this class. It's right in line with the top-ranked Honda Accord, which also did 0 to 60 in 8 seconds. While we were at the test track, the braking also showed that it came to a stop from 60 miles an hour in 127 feet. Generally, we think anything with a braking distance under 120 for the class is about average, so it took just a little bit longer for it to come to a stop. When you do get into the brakes, it does feel confident. There's the right amount of pedal effort where it doesn't feel mushy, but at the same time, it's not too stiff where it's hard to modulate. All in all, it comes to a stop pretty well and controllably when you're panic stopping. When it comes to handling, I'm giving this a better than average rating because, well, it feels okay when you're pushing it through the curves or when you need to swerve out of the way. I did take it for a few laps at the test track yesterday, and yes, I know it's not a performance vehicle, but it gave me a little bit of an indication of what maybe the potential can be pulled from this for the GT. And I have to say, I was somewhat impressed. It handled really well for a base engine sedan, and that's not with any sticky tires or suspension or anything else. I'm on one of my favorite twisty roads in LA right now, and it feels confident. When you tip it into a turn, the body roll is there, but it's well managed. Here's a nice first gear turn. There's a lot of tire howl, but also, what do you expect? It's a family sedan. I realize that most family sedan shoppers don't really care about handling performance, but I will say that even those shoppers can notice a difference between a car that is well sorted out or one that is kind of soft and not suited to taking turns. Overall drivability, I'm going to give it a pretty high score because it's just easy to drive. On my 3-hour evaluation loop last night, I felt no fatigue. It was just easy to while away all of the miles. And at the end, I achieved 33 mpg. That was our 115-mile evaluation loop that includes a lot of highway. At least we can say that we've confirmed its fuel economy estimates. During that drive, these seats gave me the right amount of cushioning and support. I didn't feel any hard points. I didn't feel like I needed to shift my position just to get a little relief. No, these felt really good. When it comes to ride comfort, well, I think they did a really good job there too. They struck a nice balance between having that confident handling, but still having enough compliance in the suspension to soak up all the bumps in the road. There's a section in LA on the 405 freeway going southbound right out of West LA with some pretty severe seams in the concrete. It really gives those tires a good slapping when you're at highway speed, just whap, 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 whap. And they were pretty much erased when I was driving it at highway speeds yesterday. So that's pretty impressive. Also helping comfort is how quiet it is on the inside. You hear the engine when you're accelerating. Otherwise, it just kind of blends and goes away. Road noise is really well attenuated, as is wind noise. And I hear a few creaks here and there coming from the big sunroof, but it's really nothing to ding it for. I'm also going to award some points for visibility. This is one of the thinner A-pillars I've come across in the class, or actually in a lot of vehicles out today. It's well placed, it's a little bit thinner, and it's well contoured so that I don't have to look around that A-pillar in a left turn. Rear visibility is okay. The deck lid back there, above the rear seats, it kind of narrows your view, but you're still seeing all the important stuff. If anything, it's just chopping off the grille of a car that's following behind you. It's also really easy to maneuver, the K5. I have a rather tight parking stall in my apartment. It was easy to just zip it in and out of that section. After logging some evaluation miles last night, as well as taking this little canyon drive now, I'm coming to the realization that I'm running out of things to complain about on the Kia K5. For regular viewers of this channel, you might realize that that's not my natural state. So far, I have really minor nitpicks, and I've said in other videos that if you hear me nitpicking a car, that probably means I really like it, and I really like this K5. The question is, can it unseat the top-rated Honda Accord? Let's look at the argument. The K5 costs less with similarly equipped vehicles. It hits 0 to 60 in the exact same time, gets almost the same fuel economy. It's as comfortable, as quiet. I think the K5 looks a little better. Of course, that's subjective, so I'm not going to weight that too much. It's easy to drive. And also, when I was on the evaluation drive, I wasn't irritated by the advanced safety features. They were well tuned, so I didn't get any false alarms. And also, the adaptive cruise control was really good. Not just really good, I'm gonna say excellent. You know why? Because it's even better than the system that's in the Mercedes-Benz. Did I just compare the Kia K5 against the Mercedes-Benz? Yes, Other Mark, I did. Okay, hear me out. On the evaluation drive, there's this long stretch on a sweeping downhill canyon. And in adaptive cruise control, yes, it maintained the gap to the car in front. That's expected. But on that steep downhill, it maintained its speed within 1 or 2 miles per hour. And also, when you're going into a curve, it automatically starts dropping the speed, but it does it very gracefully, and it does it to a level that makes sense. In the Mercedes, when that system is active and you're about to head into a turn, it drops the boat anchor. It gets onto the brakes and it just putts through the turn. This one, it drives pretty much like a normal human should. Also, the lane keep assist was really well tuned too. I didn't feel like I had to fight the wheel when it made a mistake. Sure, it happens every now and then where maybe a line comes into your lane that it mistakes for one of the lane markings. Sure, that happened once, but it took very little effort to correct it. In some other cars, I feel like I have to wrestle the wheel loose from the computer. So, advantage Kia again. And this doesn't mean that I don't want the K5 to be the top-rated family sedan in its class. I'm just a little concerned that I like it so much. So far, I really only have 3 nitpicks. And man, are they minor. The first is that chrome strip on the exterior that circles the car. Not my taste, but you know what? If I were to buy one of these, and I would if I needed it, I'd just get some vinyl wrap tape and cover it up. It's pretty easy. They sell scraps on eBay for cheap. Nitpick number 2, the shifter. They should have covered it in leather instead of that cheapo vinyl, and it's that sore thumb that just sticks out, almost literally like a sore thumb. But I can fix that at home too. I mean, go to Goodwill, get a leather jacket or something, cut a square out of it and glue it to this. Problem solved. The last nitpick, this piano black on top of the infotainment screen tends to reflect sunlight into your eyes if you're driving into the sun, towards the sun. Obviously, you're not driving into the sun. It's like 100 million miles away. And my fix for that would just be a strip of black gaffer tape. So it sounds like I could fix all of the little nitpicks I have with the K5 with about $7. All the goodness that I like about this K5 points to some pretty strong potential for that GT. And that GT, well, that's going to be a different beast. It's getting a 2.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder that puts out 290 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque. That's a big jump from this, which is already good. More than adequate for sure. I am intrigued. There's a lot more I want to talk about when it comes to the interior, so for that, I'm going to stop driving and I'm going to jump back into the EX, which has a few more features that I wanted to point out. Just like the exterior design of the K5, I'm a fan of the interior design too. First off, the dash has this broad horizontal look to it, which sort of reminds me of some luxury sedans from Europe, but obviously materials quality isn't anywhere near as nice. But for the class, it is still quite good. All of the points you'd normally touch are well padded. Everything below, let's say, your elbows is harder plastic, which is also pretty much typical for any mid-size family sedan like this. Right at the top of the dash is a big touchscreen, which is right where I want it. It keeps it in my sightlines and reduces distraction while I'm driving. The responses are relatively quick. There's a little bit of delay when you touch a button, but it does work well and it's super easy to read, especially when you're driving. Right underneath that big screen are some horizontal vents that do a really good job of dispersing either hot or cold air. So on a hot day like this, it cools down the cabin pretty quickly. But there is a kicker. This automatic climate control has 3 settings that coincide with fan speed. So if your preference is a slightly quieter air conditioning unit, you can have that, yet still enjoy automatic climate control. Right here on the center console is something I didn't expect to like as much as I do, which is this gear selector. It's this big beefy thing that sort of reminds me of the throttle on an airplane. But I do have one knock against it. It's not wrapped in leather like the steering wheel is, and the vinyl texture in here looks a little cheap. Maybe for the next model year they can wrap that in leather too. Other secondary controls right on the center console remind me of the Stinger in a really good way. These seat climate controls for heating or ventilation kind of rock up and down just like the Stinger does, with a drive mode knob right in the middle. Just behind that is a wireless charging pad. Now, besides just having a wireless charging pad, there's this little spring-loaded door here that holds your phone secure while you're driving, so it's not rattling around and it's not going to shift out of place and stop charging either. That's a really nice touch to me, which says to me that they're paying a lot more attention to the details. The center armrest bin is pretty well sized. You can fit a lot of stuff in there, which contrasts a little bit to the pockets in the doors. Now, they're wide enough, but the armrest itself kind of blocks any vertical space that you might want for a water bottle, so that might get a ding there. But the cup holders are really well sized. They'll easily hold a big gulp, extra large, if that's your thing. Another thing I wasn't expecting was this really nice wood trim. I'm not sure if it's genuine wood, but if it's not, it's probably the most convincing imitation I've come across yet. There is an overabundance of piano black surfaces in the interior, but that's pretty typical for any car you're getting in these days. As a family sedan, of course, the rear seats are vitally important, so let's go take a look. Despite losing 4/10 of an inch in headroom back here, I still fit without a problem. I'm 5'10" too. So that means, yeah, you can get an average adult to fit back here comfortably. I have plenty of room for my feet, as well as a ton of knee room. So as much space as there is, I'm thinking it's probably not a problem to put a rear-facing infant seat back here without affecting the front passengers much. Materials quality isn't as nice in the back seats as it is up front, but that's not unusual for the class. We've got some hard plastics up here, but your elbow touch points are still well padded. I do have a nice padded center armrest right here, as well as 2 USB charge ports right down on the bottom. I also have some nice vents here that you can direct towards the passengers. They're a little weak, but still better than nothing. Despite appearances, the K5 isn't a hatchback. It has a regular trunk, and a pretty decent trunk too. 16 cubic feet of cargo spaces on the high end for the class. Helping matters is the rather wide and tall opening, which helps get bulky items in. Also helping are these little pull tabs here that release the rear seat backs. Overall, I give the K5 high marks for practicality in addition to all that style.
I like the way the K5 looks. I think it's as attractive as the Mazda 6, which is currently rated number 2 in its class. It drives as well as the Honda Accord, which is the number 1 pick in its class. In terms of performance, it matches the Honda Accord, but it's slightly less expensive
if it's similarly equipped. And there's still room at the top for the GT. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we have a new winner. I have to crunch a whole lot of numbers to verify, but at the very least, this is going to be in the top 3 with the Accord and the Mazda 6. Wow, I mean, my nitpicks are so minor that I feel dumb just for even bringing them up. Yikes. I was convinced that this K5 was going to be better than the outgoing Optima. I mean, that's an easy leap. I just didn't expect it to be this good. Man, good on you, Kia. You've done it again. You surprised us with the Telluride, and that's been #1 for 2 years in Edmunds rankings. I feel like with the product schedule and not a lot of other new sedans coming out, if this is indeed the #1 sedan, it'll probably hold it for a few years. We just finished shooting, and I came up with another nitpick. When I want to skip a song, I have to hit this lever down on the steering wheel instead of up. How am I supposed to adapt to such inconsistency in the universe? Actually, no, I love the car. It's great. It still holds true. So, see you next time. Ciao.